Emma sat in her car outside the apartment building, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. The engine was off, but she couldn't bring herself to open the door. Inside that building was everything she loved. Inside that building was also everything that was slowly destroying her. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Jake. "Where are you? I made your favorite dinner." She stared at those words, feeling her heart crack a little more. That was the thing about loving someone who wasn't right for you. They could still be wonderful in small moments. They could still remember your favorite meal. They could still make you laugh. But somehow, in the bigger picture, in the day-to-day reality of your life together, you were disappearing. And tonight, Emma had made a decision that terrified her more than anything she'd ever done before. Tonight, she was going to leave the man she still loved. Not because the love had died, but because she had started to. If you've ever loved someone who couldn't love you the way you needed, stay with me. Because this story isn't about falling out of love. It's about something far more painful and far more necessary. It's about choosing yourself when every fiber of your being wants to choose them instead. 3 years. That's how long Emma had been with Jake. 3 years of trying to make it work. 3 years of telling herself that love should be hard, that relationships take sacrifice, that if she just tried a little harder, things would get better. But here's what was really at stake, though Emma couldn't see it clearly until recently. Her career slowly fading because Jake needed her attention during her work hours. Her friendships, distant echoes of what they once were because Jake didn't like her friends much. Her confidence, eroded by 1,000 small comments disguised as jokes. Her dreams, pushed to a back burner that had somehow turned off entirely. "I love you," Jake would say, and he meant it. Emma knew he meant it. But his love came with conditions she'd never explicitly agreed to. His love came with an unspoken contract that required her to be smaller, quieter, more available, less ambitious. The night before, Emma had been on the phone with her sister, Maya. "Em, do you even remember what you wanted before you met him?" Maya had asked, her voice gentle but firm. Emma had opened her mouth to answer and realized with a jolt of horror that she couldn't. She couldn't remember what she'd wanted. Somewhere in the 3 years of loving Jake, she'd stopped wanting anything for herself at all. "I wanted to write a book," Emma had finally whispered. "I wanted to travel to Japan. I wanted to open that cafe we always talked about. And now I want Jake to be happy with me." The silence on the other end of the line had been deafening. That's when Emma understood what was really at stake. It wasn't just about whether she stayed or left. It was about whether she would spend the rest of her life trying to earn love from someone who made her feel like she had to earn it. Or whether she would bet on herself, on the possibility that there was a version of her life where she could be loved and be herself. Emma finally got out of the car. She walked up the 3 flights of stairs, each step feeling like she was climbing a mountain. Her key turned in the lock, and there he was. Jake stood in the kitchen, apron on, that boyish smile on his face. The apartment smelled like her mother's lasagna recipe, the one she'd taught him to make on their first anniversary. "There's my girl," he said, pulling her into a hug. I was getting worried. For a moment, Emma let herself melt into him. This was the Jake she fell in love with. The one who noticed when she had a bad day. The one who could make her laugh until her stomach hurt. The one who held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Jake, we need to talk," she started, but he was already pulling her to the table. "Food first, talk later. I know you haven't eaten all day." And there it was. That care, that attention. It would be so easy to stay, so easy to convince herself that these moments were enough, that this version of Jake was the real one. And the other version, the critical one, the controlling one, was just stress or bad days. "You've been distant lately," Jake said as they sat down. "Is it work? Because I think you should really consider what I said about that promotion. It's going to mean longer hours, and we barely see each other as it is." Emma's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. There it was again, the gentle steering of her life in directions that suited him. "Actually, I've decided to take the promotion," Emma heard herself say. The words surprised her as much as they surprised him. Jake's expression shifted, just for a second. Long enough for Emma to see the flash of anger before he smoothed it over with concern. "Em, I don't think you've really thought this through. What about us? What about our plans?" "What plans, Jake? What exactly are our plans?" "You know, marriage, kids eventually. The life we've been building." "The life you've been building," Emma said softly. "I don't remember the last time you asked me what I wanted." "That's not fair. Everything I do is for us." And maybe that was true. Maybe Jake genuinely believed that. But Emma was starting to realize that us had somehow become a concept where only one person's needs, dreams, and preferences actually mattered. She almost stayed that night. Almost convinced herself she was being selfish, ungrateful, too demanding. But then she caught her reflection in the window behind Jake's head. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Where had Emma gone? The next morning, Emma called in sick to work. She couldn't remember the last time she'd done that. Jake had already left for his morning run, and Emma found herself alone in the apartment. Really alone. For the first time in months. She walked through the rooms, noticing things she'd stopped seeing. The bookshelf where her books had been slowly replaced with his. The walls where her art had come down to make room for his photos. The closet where her clothes had been condensed to make space for his growing collection. Her laptop was on the coffee table. On impulse, Emma opened her old journal folder, files she hadn't looked at in years. There she was, the Emma from 4 years ago, before Jake. She read her own words like they were written by a stranger. "I've decided to quit my safe job and pursue writing full-time. Terrifying but necessary. I'm also signing up for that solo trip to Tokyo. Mom thinks I'm crazy, but I need to prove to myself I can do scary things alone. I want a love that makes me bigger, not smaller. I want someone who celebrates my ambition, not someone I have to dim my light for." Emma's hands shook. That woman, that brave, ambitious woman. Where had she gone? Her phone rang. It was her friend Rachel, someone she hadn't spoken to properly in over a year. "Emma! Oh my God. I've been trying to reach you for months. Are you okay?" Just hearing Rachel's voice, Emma started to cry. "I don't know. I don't think so. Talk to me." And Emma did. She talked about how Jake had gradually made her feel like her friends were bad influences, how he'd convinced her that her dreams of writing were impractical, how every decision, from what movie to watch to what city to live in, somehow always ended up being what Jake wanted, how she'd stopped being invited to parties because Jake would always find a reason they couldn't go, how her family had stopped calling as much because Jake made visits so tense. "Em," Rachel said carefully, "do you hear what you're telling me? Do you hear how you've shrunk your entire life to fit into his world? But he loves me, Rach. I know he does. I believe that. But honey, love without respect isn't love. It's possession. And you're not his property. You're a whole person with dreams and needs, and a right to your own life." After they hung up, Emma sat in the silence of the apartment. She thought about how she'd explained away every red flag, how she'd made excuses for behavior that, if she saw it happening to Rachel or Maya, would have her packing their bags herself. That's when the real revelation hit her. She'd been so focused on not wanting to give up on the relationship that she'd given up on herself instead. She'd been so afraid of being the person who couldn't make it work that she'd stopped asking whether this was something she should even want to make work. That evening, Jake came home excited. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about taking that promotion, and I've come up with a compromise." Emma looked up from her laptop, where she'd been updating her resume for the first time in 3 years. "You take the promotion, but we move closer to your office. That way, even with the longer hours, your commute is shorter, and we still get quality time together." On the surface, it seemed reasonable. It seemed like Jake was trying. But Emma saw the truth beneath it. The solution still centered his needs. They'd move closer to her office, which happened to be farther from his favorite gym, his poker night, his parents. He was setting up the situation so that she'd feel guilty every time her new job impacted their quality time. She'd owe him for this sacrifice. "Jake, that's not a compromise. That's you creating a new way to make me feel bad about my choices." "That's not fair, Emma. I'm trying here. What do you want from me?" And that was the question, wasn't it? What did Emma want? "I want to not have to fight for my own life," Emma said quietly. "I want to not feel like I need permission to have ambitions. I want to be with someone who's excited when I grow, not threatened by it." "So what? You want to break up? After 3 years, you're just going to throw this away?" "I'm not throwing anything away, Jake. I'm trying to save the only thing I have left, myself." Jake's face hardened. "You're being dramatic. Every relationship has these issues. You think it's going to be easier with someone else? You think you're going to find someone who loves you more than I do?" And there was the trap. The one Emma had fallen into 100 times before. The implication that she was lucky to have his love, that she should be grateful, that she was making a mistake she'd regret. But something had shifted in Emma. She thought about that journal entry, about the woman who had been brave enough to take risks on herself. She thought about her sister's question. "Do you even remember what you wanted?" "Maybe I will find someone who loves me differently," Emma said. "Or maybe I won't. But either way, I'll find myself again. And right now, that matters more." The final conversation happened 3 days later. Emma had stayed with Maya, giving herself space to think clearly. She'd made lists, gone to therapy, talked to friends she'd lost touch with. And every path led to the same conclusion. She had to leave. Jake had texted repeatedly, "Come home, baby. We can fix this. I love you." And Emma knew he did. That was the cruelest part. He loved her in the only way he knew how. But his love required her to be someone she wasn't. His love meant sacrifice, but only from one side. His love felt like drowning, even when he thought he was keeping her afloat. She met him at a coffee shop, neutral ground. When Jake saw her, his face lit up with hope, and Emma's heart shattered all over again. "I knew you'd come back," he said, reaching for her hands across the table. "Jake, I'm not coming back. I came to say goodbye properly." No, Emma, don't do this. We can go to couples therapy. I'll change. I'll be better. Just don't leave." Emma took a shaky breath. "I need you to hear something, really hear it. You are not a bad person. You never hit me. You never cheated. You tell me you love me every day. But Jake, love isn't enough if it costs me myself. That's not fair. I never asked you to change. You didn't have to ask. That's how it works. 1,000 small adjustments. 1,000 times I made myself smaller so you could feel bigger. You never asked, but you also never noticed. You never once stopped and wondered why I stopped painting, stopped seeing my friends, stopped talking about my dreams. Because it was easier for you when I didn't have things pulling my attention away from you." Jake's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Emma. Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for everything and nothing at all," Emma said, her own tears falling now. "I will always love you, Jake. That's what makes this so hard. I'm not leaving because I stopped loving you. I'm leaving because I'm starting to love myself again." "Please," Jake whispered, "please don't give up on us." And this was the moment, the climax of Emma's story, the point where she had to choose between the comfortable pain of staying and the terrifying freedom of leaving. Emma stood up, her legs shaking but holding. "I'm not giving up on us, Jake. We already gave up on us the moment we built a relationship where only one person got to have needs, dreams, and autonomy. I'm just finally acknowledging it. She walked out of that coffee shop feeling like she was leaving a part of her heart on that table. Because she was. You don't stop loving someone just because you need to leave them. The love doesn't just evaporate. It stays with you, a beautiful, painful reminder of what was and what could never be. 6 months later, Emma sat in a small cafe in Tokyo, the one she'd dreamed about visiting for years. Her laptop was open in front of her, and she was writing, really writing. The book she'd always wanted to create was taking shape, 3 chapters already complete. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "How's my brave sister doing?" Emma smiled and snapped a photo of her view. Mount Fuji in the distance, cherry blossoms framing the window, her coffee steaming beside her laptop. "Living," she typed back. "Finally living." Was it easy? No. There were nights she still reached for her phone to call Jake. There were moments she questioned whether she'd made a mistake. There were days the loneliness felt overwhelming. But there were also mornings she woke up and recognized herself in the mirror. There were conversations with friends she'd reconnected with. There were pages written and dreams pursued and choices made that were entirely her own. Emma had learned something profound in those 6 months. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. You can love someone with your whole heart and still need to leave them. You can wish them well and still know they're not well for you. Here's what Emma wished she'd known earlier, what she wants you to know now. 1. Love should multiply you, not divide you. If you're constantly subtracting parts of yourself to fit into someone's life, that's not love. That's erasure. 2. You can't fix someone else's insecurities by making yourself smaller. Their discomfort with your growth is their work to do, not your burden to carry. 3. I love you are not magic words that excuse problematic behavior. Love is a verb. It's shown through respect, support, and genuine care for your well-being and dreams. 4. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes leaving is the only way you succeed at honoring yourself. 5. You will doubt yourself 1,000 times. You'll wonder if you're being too sensitive, too demanding, too selfish. But trust this. If you constantly have to convince yourself you're happy, you're not. 6. The right person for you won't require you to negotiate for basic respect. You won't have to fight to pursue your dreams. You won't have to shrink so they can shine. Emma still had hard days. She still missed Jake sometimes, missed the good parts, the easy moments. But she'd learned to separate nostalgia from wisdom. Just because something was good sometimes doesn't mean it was good for you. She'd also learned that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. And that relationship had been in crisis, starving for attention, while she poured all her energy into saving a partnership that was killing her softly. So here's what I want you to do. Right now, today, this moment. Take out a piece of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On one side, write, "The person I was before this relationship." On the other side, write, "The person I am now." Be honest. Brutally honest. What dreams have you set aside? What friendships have you lost? What parts of yourself have you compressed, hidden, or abandoned to make room for someone else's comfort? If your list on the right side is smaller, dimmer, quieter than the list on the left, you have a choice to make. And it's the most important choice you'll ever make. You can stay and hope things change, hope they'll suddenly start valuing what they've been dismissing for months or years. You can keep trying, keep sacrificing, keep explaining why you deserve basic respect and partnership. Or you can choose yourself. And I know that's terrifying. I know it feels impossible. I know you love them. I know they have good qualities. I know change is scary and lonely and uncertain. But I also know this. You are not put on this earth to be someone's supporting character. You are the protagonist of your own life story. And if the person you're with can't celebrate that, if they need you small to feel big, if your growth threatens them instead of exciting them, then they're not your person. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much they say they love you, love yourself more. Choose yourself first, not because you don't care about them, but because you finally started caring about you. That woman I told you about, Emma. She's a compilation of stories I've heard from hundreds of people over the years. People who stayed too long, who left just in time, who wished they'd left sooner. People who confused love with loyalty to their own detriment. You might be Emma right now, sitting in that car, hands on the steering wheel, afraid to go inside. Or afraid to leave. But here's the truth that Emma learned, and that I hope you will learn too. The fear of leaving will pass. The regret of staying when you knew you should have left. That stays with you much, much longer. Your life is waiting for you. Your dreams are waiting for you. The version of yourself that you've been suppressing, hiding, minimizing. She's waiting for you too. And she's worth choosing. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because at the end of your life, you won't regret the relationships that didn't work out. You'll regret the life you didn't live because you were too afraid to disappoint someone who was already disappointing you every single day. Choose yourself. You're worth it. You've always been worth it. Now it's time to believe it.